what the... Apple probably spent a lot of money last year convincing us that the 5.1mm iPad Pro M5 was the absolute limit of physics. Yet, HONOR have quietly dropped a 4.8mm tablet that costs less than half the price. Let's get into it. Today, we're putting this brand new HONOR MagicPad 4 to the test. I'm going to show you exactly why this ridiculously thin slice of metal and glass might just be the most disruptive piece of tech we've seen in 2026, and whether you should finally consider buying an Android tablet. To get a tablet this thin, companies usually have to make brutal compromises. You normally lose battery life, you lose speaker quality, and you end up with a device that feels like it might snap if you look at it funny. Because of that, I expected this to be nothing more than a fragile tech demo. However, what I discovered when I connected the Magic Keyboard and looked at HONOR's massive new software promise completely changed how I think about Android tablets. Before we get into the features that finally made me put down my iPad Pro that I've been rocking for a while, we need to talk about what it actually feels like to hold the world's thinnest tablet. Let's get straight to the design because we need to talk about how absurdly thin this actually is. 4.8mm is a number that is incredibly hard to visualize until you actually hold it. It's roughly half the width of your pinky finger. I guess it depends how big your pinky finger is, but you get my point. It's thinner than a standard USB-A port. Actually makes my smartphone look like a bulky brick from the 90s. But jokes aside, when you pick up the MagicPad 4, the very first thing that hits you isn't the thickness. The real shock is the weight. It comes in at exactly 450 grams. To put that into perspective, you can hold this thing in one hand while lying in bed, reading a book or scrolling through articles, and your wrist really doesn't start screaming for mercy after 10 minutes. That's a massive deal because most big screen tablets force you to prop them up on a pillow or use them two hands because they're just too heavy for casual reading. And the build quality here is entirely premium. It has gorgeous matte finish on the back, which is fantastic because it means it doesn't turn into a greasy fingerprint magnet the second you touch it. You get subtle metallic accents, very minimal branding, and a camera bump that only protrudes a tiny bit, which means when you lay it flat on a desk to take notes with a stylus, because it works with one, it doesn't wobble around like a seesaw. Now, you're probably wondering about durability, right? When a piece of tech this ridiculously thin, the immediate fear is the infamous bend test. Look, I bought this tablet with my own money, meaning I'm not going to snap it in half for views. However, if any of you want to send me your tablet, I'll happily test it out. Strictly for scientific purposes, obviously. But jokes aside, I've carried this around in my backpack for a solid week, crammed between heavy hard books, laptops, and other things, and my camera gear, yet it feels remarkably rigid. HONOR use an aerospace grade aluminium alloy frame to give it serious structural integrity. As a result, you do not feel any flex when you hold it by the corners. There is one small catch though. Because they shaved it down to a microscopic limit, there is no 3.5mm jack. I know, it's 2026 and we should all be using wireless earbuds by now. Still, sometimes I just want to plug in my trusty old wired cans without hunting around my house for a dongle. Even so, when you look at the sheer engineering on display here, it's hard to stay mad about headphone jack. Now, an ultra thin design is a great party trick. The catch is, a tablet is basically just a giant screen you carry around with you, right? If the display is bad, the whole experience is ruined. Last year, HONOR made a really weird decision with the MagicPad 3 and used an LCD panel. It was fine, it just wasn't great. That's why I was incredibly relieved to see that HONOR brought OLED back for the MagicPad 4. And they didn't just bring back any OLED, they brought an absolute great piece of panel. This is a 12.3-inch display with crystal sharp 3K resolution. That's a 3000 by 1920 pixels. What that means in plain English is that text looks like it was printed on a piece of high quality magazine paper. You literally can't see the individual pixels unless you press your eyeball up against the glass, which I highly advise against. And because it's OLED, the colors are ridiculously vibrant. The blacks are completely, totally dark. When you watch a movie with dark scenes, the black bars at the top and the bottom just vanish into the bezel. Speaking of bezels, they're razor thin. Not as thin as the ones we've seen on our phones, but still, this gives you a massive 93% screen to body ratio. It basically looks like you're holding a floating window of pure light. This actually gets better. The screen has a 165Hz refresh rate. For a long time, 60Hz was standard, right? And then we moved to 120Hz, which felt smooth. 160Hz is frankly overkill for reading emails and browsing and scrolling, yet it makes everything feel even more buttery smooth, if you can even do that. Swiping between home screens, scrolling through long web pages, or dragging windows around feels instant. Even playing games. Your brain stops registering it as a computer screen, and it starts to feel like you're pushing physical objects around on a desk. While we're talking about the screen, we have to talk about eye care, because HONOR is absolutely obsessed with it. They packed this display with something called 5280Hz PWM dimming. Now what does that actually mean? Let me break down the tech jargon down for you simply. When you turn the brightness down low on most OLED screens, the screen doesn't actually get dimmer. It acts like a light switch turning itself on and off, so incredibly fast that your brain gets tricked into thinking it's actually darker. That invisible micro flicker is exactly what gives some people headaches and eye strain when they scroll their phones in bed. On the absolute best flagships right now, we usually see 4320Hz PWM dimming. That's already fantastic. Basically means the screen flickers 4320 times a second. However, this tablet pushes that speed up to 5280Hz. You might be thinking, why do I need a high number on a tablet than on my phone? Because a tablet screen is significantly larger than your phone. It shines so much more light into your eyes across a much wider area. As a result, that extra flickering speed is crucial. It means the flicker is completely undetectable to the human eye, even in a pitch black room. I spent a few hours reading on this thing in the dark, and my eyes were totally fine. It's basically the safest OLED screen you can put in front of your face right now. Probably anyway. So, the picture quality and eye care are a 10 out of 10. The next question is, what about the sound? You would think in a tablet this thin, you wouldn't have any physical space for good speakers, right? Physics dictates how much air gets pushed around, right? Somehow, I don't know how they've done it, HONOR have managed to cram 8 individual speakers into the edges of this tablet. 8! I fired up an action movie, turned the volume to around 80%. I was quite surprised. The sound is thick, punchy, and it's quite loud. And it supports IMAX enhanced spatial audio, meaning if a helicopter flies across the screen, you actually hear it pan from your left ear across your face and over to the right ear. These speakers are probably one of the best ones I've actually used in a tablet. It makes me wonder though, why have I ever watched anything on my phone? Alright, we have an amazing screen and the speakers are pretty good. Every tablet needs brains though, right? Under the hood, the MagicPad 4 is running the brand new Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 processor, paired with up to 16 gigs of RAM. Now notice how I didn't say elite, because this isn't the elite version of that chip that goes into those $1,000 flagship phones. The upside, it's built on a microscopic 3nm process. In simple terms, this means the chip is extremely fast, incredibly efficient, and it doesn't get too hot. I threw everything at this tablet, mainly watching videos and stuff. I ran spreadsheets, I had loads of browsers open because I'm really bad at closing my browsers, and I played some demanding 3D games. The MagicPad 4 didn't really stutter, it didn't lag, and most importantly, it didn't turn into a frying pan. It stayed cool to the touch, even after an hour of those tasks I was running. Raw power is useless if the software holds it back. Android tablets have famously struggled to feel like real work machines. They usually just feel like giant smartphones. To solve this, HONOR created something called PC mode. And this is probably one of the best parts of the tablet. If you pick up the optional touch keyboard, I have a gripe with that first of all. In the UK, HONOR have released something called a touch keyboard, which is fine. It's a keyboard that connects to the tablet magnetically. However, on the global side, they have something called a smart touch keyboard, which includes a touchpad for the mouse. Now, I cannot find this anywhere, like there's no option to buy it. I've even emailed HONOR about this and they just point me right back to the UK site with the touch keyboard. I just want to buy it because ideally a touchpad attached to the keyboard to use as a PC would definitely enhance my workflow and make it more efficient than just having a keyboard attached. Anyway, rant over. If you pick up the touch keyboard, thanks HONOR UK, which magnetically attaches to the back of the tablet, something unexpected happens. The tablet recognizes the keyboard and the software interface instantly transforms. Your standard Android layout disappears and you get a desktop appearance. You get a taskbar at the bottom of the screen, you get a system tray in the corner with your Wi-Fi and battery icons. Most importantly, apps stop opening in a forced full screen mode. Instead, they open in floating windows. Now you can see why I wanted that touchpad. I know you can add a Bluetooth mouse. You can drag these windows around, resize them, overlap them, and minimize them just like you would on a Windows laptop or a Mac. You can run up to around 20 windows simultaneously. I was sitting around in a coffee shop, writing a script on Google Docs on the left side of the screen, playing a video on the top right, and keeping my messages open in the bottom right. The 16 gigabytes of RAM meant I never had to wait for an app to reload when I clicked back into it. The keyboard itself, I'm actually quite surprised with. Even though the cover is slim, the keys have a satisfying amount of travel and a nice click to them, but it doesn't have a backlight, which means typing in the dark a bit is a bit of a guessing game if you aren't a touch typist. On the flip side, if you're creative, they also sell the Magic Pencil. I believe in the UK we get an inferior model to what they offer globally. But anyway, and because of that blazing fast 165 Hz, the digital ink flows directly out of the pen tip with zero noticeable lag. As a result, the MagicPad 4 actually crossed the line for me. For the first time, I felt confident enough leaving my heavy laptop at home and just taking this tablet out for a full day of work, because it's like 16 inches and I don't go to the gym as much as I should. Now, I need to talk about the single biggest reason why this tablet has completely changed my mind about Android tablets. For the longest time, whenever friends or family asked me advice on what to buy, my answer would always be the exact same. Buy an iPhone or Android for your pocket, because those are pretty decent now. But buy an iPad for your bag. That was a golden rule. The reason was simple: longevity. Apple historically supported the iPads for 6 or 7 years with fresh software updates. Android tablets, on the other hand, usually got abandoned by the manufacturer after just 1 or 2 years. You would spend hundreds of pounds or dollars on a piece of hardware only for the software to become outdated and insecure, while the tablet still looked brand new. It was incredibly frustrating, and that kind of shied me away. That is exactly why the iPad was my go-to for recommendations, even for myself. However, HONOR has just completely destroyed that argument. With the MagicPad 4, HONOR is officially promising 6 full years of Android OS updates and security updates. Let that sink in for a second. If you buy this tablet today in 2026, HONOR will still be pushing brand new features, software upgrades, and vital security patches to this exact device all the way into 2032. That changes absolutely everything for me. It means you no longer have to mix ecosystems. You don't have to deal with the headache of moving files between an Android phone and an Apple tablet just because you want a device that lasts. In fact, if you want to see how HONOR on their phone is breaking down that walled garden, check out my video that pops up right now. You can finally stay fully focused within the Android ecosystem and get the exact premium long-term support that Apple users have been bragging about for a decade. This isn't just a hardware win. It's a massive victory for anyone who wants a tech investment to actually last. Of course, a device that lasts after 6 years requires a battery that won't die on you. When you make a device this thin, The battery is always the first victim. Honor had to actually shrink the battery capacity down slightly from last year's model. The MagicPad 4 packs a 10,100 mAh battery, and because Honor are using the new silicon carbon battery technology, and because the OLED screen and the Snapdragon chip are so incredibly power efficient, the real world battery life is outstanding. I took this off the charger at around 7 to 8 AM. I watched some YouTube, quite a lot of YouTube. I tend to procrastinate quite a lot. Typed out emails for hours, listened to YouTube music, did some scripts, and then browsed the web probably in between. And by 10 PM that night, I still had between 30 to 40% battery left in the tank. It'll easily last you a few days of casual evening use on the sofa or in bed. And when you need to plug it in, it supports a 66-watt fast charging, which means it gets you up to 100% remarkably quickly. Not as quick as my phone, but still quick. Now I promised you the whole truth, so we definitely have to talk about some of the drawbacks, because no piece of tech is perfect yet. First, the cameras. You get a 13 megapixel camera on the back and a 9 megapixel camera on the front. They're fine. They'll scan the document clearly and you look perfectly acceptable on a Zoom call. Just don't take this to a concert expecting to shoot cinematic video. It's a tablet camera, and please don't be that guy. Second, there is no cellular or 5G option. There's only Wi-Fi. If you need to work in a park with no public Wi-Fi, we'll have to tether it to your phone's hotspot. Thirdly, this is a weird one. It doesn't have an official IP rating for water and dust resistance. Most flagship phones can survive a drop in the pool, meaning I'll be very careful taking this extremely thin tablet near a bathtub or a sandy beach. Also, there is no fingerprint scanner or secure Face ID, which means people who like to use the tablets for banking apps will have to type in their passwords a whole bunch of times. For me, it doesn't really matter because I use all my banking stuff on my phone, but for those of you who do, it's just one thing to bear in mind. That brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the price. It's quite important, right? In the UK, the HONOR MagicPad 4 starts at around £599 for the 12GB RAM version and 256GB storage version. Let's just pause and think about that value. £600 spread across 6 years of guaranteed software updates means this tablet effectively costs you £100 a year to own a flagship device. Apple's 11-inch iPad Pro M5, which is thicker, only very slightly, has a slower 120Hz screen and gives you less base storage, starting at well over £1,000. Samsung's Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra will also easily hit that £1,000 or dollar mark. For 600 quid, Honor is giving you an engineering marvel. You're getting the world's thinnest tablet, a flawless OLED display, in my opinion, an audio that's pretty decent. You get multitasking and that peace of mind that it won't be obsolete in 2 years. If you're fully locked into the Apple ecosystem with a MacBook and an iPhone, this probably won't convert you, and that's fair enough. On the other hand, if you're an Android user or even a Windows user looking for a powerful ultralight companion device for travel, media consumption, and productivity, the HONOR MagicPad 4 is without a shadow of a doubt the premium Android tablet to beat right now. It's a showstopper. I actually just tested out another device that perfectly pairs well with this tablet. The new Sony XM6 earbuds. They've been out for a month or so, but I properly tested them for a while because I didn't want to just shoot out a review. If you want to see if they actually block out the noise of a screaming baby on an aeroplane or just general traffic, click on the video popping up on your screen right now. Go on, click it. I'll see you over there. If you found this video helpful and genuinely useful, make sure to like and hit subscribe. I'm Maz, and this is Maz Tech Central, where I like to keep tech simple and accessible for everyone. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.